Jai.
Can everybody hear me properly? I have the feeling this mic is not really. Second. Okay. My pranam to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here amongst you. And I would just have one small request before I start. Maybe we could all come a little closer. Why I'm asking you is because I'm going to feel way more comfortable speaking. I won't feel like I'm talking down to somebody. So it's easier for me if we come closer, the ones who can. So, as soon as I came into the temple, I was informed that I don't have as much time as I thought I would have, of course. So, I'll just start with a very short Mangala Shrine to invoke in auspiciousness, and then we'll start because we have a lot to cover. Om Jnana-timirandasya Anjana Sharakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaurachandaya Radhikaya Tadaraye Krishnaya Krishna Bhakta Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Let's offer our humble obeisances into the lotus feet of Shri Guru and Srila Prabhupada, the lotus feet of Gauranga Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. Of course, our beloved Shri Radha Madhava and all the Vaishnavas, including everybody present here today. It really is a pleasure to speak here again after 2 years. So Lavanya requested me to give a class today, so you're taking a risk. I haven't given a class in a while, but let us try to say a few things that are hopefully going to be of some value. And before it was said that this is a class specifically tailor-made for the youth, I don't know. Let us see. I think it's relevant for hopefully everyone present. I'm going to speak on something that is very dear to my heart, and being honest, this is the very first time I'm speaking on this in public, so bear with me. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. So these words were spoken by a very famous psychoanalyst called Carl Gustav Jung. Maybe some of you have heard of him. He's actually the father of psychoanalytics. And already in the beginning, I'm doing something very unconventional. I'm giving you the essence of this class right at the beginning. So there you see, I haven't spoken in a while, so I'm doing something that is not usually done, but I think it's worthwhile sticking along because what I'm going to speak about today is truly transformative, or at least it should be. We're going to read a verse from our Bhagavad Gita. And usually we go through the Sanskrit and the word for word, and I'm going to read the Sanskrit, but I'm going to skip the word for word because we don't have so much time, unfortunately. I'm going to read from chapter 10, verse 20. So Arjuna says to Krishna, Aham atma gudakesha sarva bhuta shayastita aham adishya madhyam cha bhutanam anta eva cha. I am the Self, O Gudakesha, seated in the hearts of all creatures. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. purported by His Divine Grace, Abhayacharya Harvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In this verse, Arjuna is addressed as Gudakesha, which means one who has conquered the darkness of sleep. For those who are sleeping in the darkness of ignorance, it is not possible to understand how the Supreme Godhead manifests Himself in the material universe and the spiritual worlds. Thus, this address by Krishna to Arjuna is significant. Because Arjuna is above such darkness, the personality of Godhead agrees to describe His various opulences, meaning Krishna's opulences, of course. Krishna first informs Arjuna that he is the self or the soul of the entire cosmic manifestation by dint of his primary expansion. Before the material creation, the Supreme Lord, by his plenary expansion, accepts the Purusha incarnations, and from him everything begins. Therefore, he is Atma, the soul of the Mahatattva, the universal elements. The total material energy is not the cause of the creation, but actually the Mahavishnu enters into the Mahatattva, the total material energy. He is the soul. When Mahavishnu enters into the manifested universes, he again manifests himself as the super soul in each and every entity. We have experienced that the personal body of the living entity exists due to the presence of the spiritual spark. Without the existence of the spiritual spark, the body cannot develop. Similarly, the material manifestation cannot develop unless the Supreme Soul of Krishna enters. This Supreme Personality of Godhead is existing as the Super Soul in all manifested universes. A description of the three Purusha avatars is given in Srimad Bhagavatam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests three features as Karanadakashaya Vishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and Kshirodakashaya Vishnu in this material manifestation. The Supreme Lord Krishna, the cause of all causes, lies down in the cosmic ocean as Mahavishnu or Karanadakashaya Vishnu, and therefore Krishna is the beginning of this universe, the maintainer of the universal manifestation, and the end of all the energy. Now, I know that for anybody who's here for the first time, this was a lot of terminology. But today I would like to focus more on the first part of the verse, which is saying that Krishna is in the heart of all living entities. So speaking of being unconventional, I would like to do something a little different this time. I would like to start with a little meditation, if you're willing to come along. So, let us start by sitting with a straight spine. Place your palms on your knees or in your lap. Now gently and lovingly close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and slowly breathe out. One more deep breath in and deep breath out. And now take the biggest Now picture that you're completely alone. Imagine yourself sitting in your most favorite place. Maybe it's a secret place in Vrindavan, Mayapur, next to the Govardhan Hill, or the Yamuna River, or any other place that is dear to your heart. Now listen to the following prayer and try to imprint this image in your heart. Shri Ishwarapuri, Lord Chaitanya's Guru, says, those fortunate souls dwelling in the secluded forests of the Himalayas may have their hearts overflowing with unparalleled joy from complete absorption in the Super Soul. But as far as I am concerned, I only desire to see within my heart the frolics of a colored boy whose complexion is more brilliant than the flash of a blue sapphire, who embodies the love of the gopis and who sports in Vrindavan with Mary and Kira. Let the poets continue to rave about poetry, and let the Vedic scholars incessantly praise the nectar derived from the Brahman realization. I myself will take shelter of a beautiful youth who is decorated with a garland made of wild flowers, holding a flute to his blossoming lips. I'll stay with that image for a while. Picture beautiful Krishna, beautiful Shyama Sundar standing in front of you. Perhaps you would like to say a prayer to him. Now is the time to do so. Or maybe you just want to be in that space for a while. Now slowly come back. Move your fingers and toes. And in your own time, open your eyes. Thank you very much for participating so nicely. How does that feel? Does it have any effect to close one's eyes and just be alone with Krishna? Is it okay?
It was
Calm, right? How was it for you?
nice.
Nice. What about you? More peaceful. Okay. That is a good first step. A few of us felt more peaceful. Now, I gave a certain title to today's class, and it's as follows: Introspection and Contemplation, Making Bhakti More Tangible. So now, after doing this exercise with me, does anybody have an idea why I could have possibly given this title? Okay. Well, I think then we're going to discover the reason together.
I feel like to get some mood.
Yeah, to get a mood, that for sure. But I think there is a deeper reason behind it, and I think it's nice if we explore it together. So, what is the reason that I choose to speak on introspection, contemplation, meditation in a class that is more or less made for the youth? So Lavanya, when she asked me to give the class today, she said, why don't you speak on something relevant for the youth? Why don't you speak on something that is that we're all going through, and something that can help us to perhaps move away from fear or anxiety. And I thought that's the perfect opportunity for me to speak on something that is so dear to me. Because if I ask myself the question of what is one thing that I could give anybody, anyone sitting in this room right now, whether young or old, is to embrace bhakti in a more contemplative, a more deep or introspective way. Now we're all in a different step or a different place on the path of bhakti. We say it takes lifetimes. And of course bhakti has her own free will. Devotion, in our tradition we say, is a personality with her own free will, and she can manifest whenever she likes. And she can also go whenever she likes. But we're in the process of sadhana bhakti. We say we're embodying a sadhaka deha, meaning the body of a practitioner. So we're practicing sadhana bhakti, and that means that we can imply certain techniques or a certain mindset that can perhaps help us to transform our mediocre, our superficial experience of this path, of this practice. Maybe we could even say a social experience, to a transformative, contemplative one. And later on I'm going to explain what contemplation really means and what is the meaning for Krishna Bhakti of contemplation. And I know it's a strange word because you can't really define it. If we open the Oxford or Cambridge dictionary and we search for contemplation, then we're going to find something like, it is deep thinking, or taking more time to think and to reflect, but that is kind of just the tip of the iceberg. And the reason, like I said, why I'm speaking on this matter in front of, well, a mixed audience, but we have some youngsters here, is that this kind of practice of bhakti with more presence and increased consciousness is actually the antidote to fear, to anxiety, to a lack of self-worth. If we're on this road, if we're on this journey of practicing bhakti and nothing really happens and we stay unchanged, then probably there's a problem that needs to be addressed, and I think it is time to address it. The problem is, of course, inattention. The problem is, of course, spiritual bypassing, whatever you want to name it. And let's have a look at the 10 offenses of the holy name. So, for anybody who is not familiar with our practice, we have the practice of repeating the Maha Mantra every single day. That is our way of meditating. That is our main spiritual practice, individually, let me put it this way, because of course there's so many limbs of devotion, many things one can do in order to connect deeply with Krishna. But our holy name was given to us by our beloved Mahaprabhu, Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So there are a few things that need to be addressed when we want to establish a very firm relationship with that name, because we say that that name is not different from Krishna himself, from Radha herself. And the 10th offense to chanting Krishna's name is what?
To not be focused, to maintain attachment to material things, even though we heard so much praise of the holy name.
Very good.
And to be inattentive, for example.
Very good. Yeah. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that inattention is the root cause of all the other problems we can face in our meditation, in our practice. Now, yesterday I checked for a, original definition of that offense, and it says the following: to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name, and to maintain, as you said, material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. With your permission, I would like to look at a more poetic rendering of that sentence that we just heard. Those whose hearts don't change, even when they melt, after being touched by love's bright flame, who remain attached to this, that, I, and mine, make offense 10, to stay unchanged. I think that is some good food for thought. Why are we not? Why don't we experience change? Why don't we experience an improvement? Maybe we do, maybe it just takes time, but I think I would like to leave this for you to contemplate on. And speaking of contemplation, I think it's time to uncover what I'm speaking here truly and why I'm using this word so much today. So, our beloved Lord, Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he has not written many things during his presence, his physical presence on earth here. But he wrote something very profound. Can anybody tell me what he wrote? Exactly, the Shikshashtaka. Can anybody else tell me what are the first words of the Shikshashtaka? Very good. The first row students, they know everything. So, Chaito Darpana Marjanam Bhavamaha Nirvapanam. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. So Mahaprabhu, he didn't write much. He just left 1 or 2 poems, actually. Nevertheless, what he left us is deeply transformative. And I think a person who writes 1 or 2 poems in his whole life and knows that these poems, these words are going to be read by people hundreds of years after his passing, he's going to be very careful with what words he's going to use. Wouldn't you agree? So, the first word Mahaprabhu gives us is Chaita. Now, Chaita is derived from the Sanskrit root chit, which means to perceive or to be conscious. From this root, we arrive at the word chitta. Now, can anybody tell me what, broadly speaking, chitta can mean? Chitta means, actually, I would say chitta means consciousness. Perhaps a more familiar term nowadays is subconscious or the unconscious. Chitta Darpana Marjanam then means dealing with the matters of the consciousness or the subconscious. We say Chitta Darpana Marjanam literally means cleansing the heart, cleansing the mirror of the heart. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't found a physical mirror in my heart. Has anybody else tried to find a mirror in their heart? Have you tried? Yeah. Have you found it?
Hard to say.
Hard to say,
really,
no.
Not really.
I don't think so. Because Mahaprabhu, of course, uses a metaphor. And we know why he uses it. Because he's speaking of the inner world, which definitely needs some cleansing for most people. I would say probably 95 to 99% of the people, it needs quite some work. But how are we going to clean or cleanse something that we're actually not really aware of? No, we need to be present. We need to become aware of what it is that perhaps is a false value. Many of us have heard of the word anartha, or anartha nivritta, meaning, again, roughly speaking, getting rid of the unuseful. We could also translate it as just false values. An anartha is a false value. Usually, we would speak of lust, greed, anger, perhaps desire for fame, you name it. But I think I would like to shift your perspective just a little bit. You can just answer, sorry, you can just answer the following question by a yes or a no. Is a lack of self-worth an obstacle? Yes. Is a lack of self-love an obstacle? Yes. It is. So, it is not just that we want to get rid of stuff floating around inside of us, but we need to address real problems in order to cleanse that mirror of the heart. Because of course we want to invite somebody very special into our heart as bhaktas, as Radha Krishna bhaktas. We want to invite them personally to take seat in our hearts. And Krishna says, I am, as a Paramatma, I am present in everybody's heart. But in order to connect to that inner realm, we need to do some work. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of work, but it is useful. And it is useful for anybody, whether it is an old person, whether it is a tall person, a small person, whatever it is, a young person. I would say, especially for young people nowadays, it is very useful to actually start understanding that we're not just here as a social activity. We're not here to dress in Indian clothes or Western clothes. It doesn't matter. Of course, we established a culture, a movement. All that is there. It has its place. But that is not the main message of Mahaprabhu. We're called the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Why consciousness? It means that our primary duty of everybody who is actually taking pride in calling himself an ISKCON member to become conscious, isn't it? If we say we're the Society for Krishna Consciousness, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, it means we have to become conscious. Of what? Of course, of Krishna. But the first step is to become conscious. And contemplation is something that can help us become conscious, that can help us perceive what is happening within and around us. And I would like to give you a small definition. So the Center for Action and Contemplation in the United States gives the following definition of contemplation. Contemplation is the practice of being fully present in heart, mind, and body to what is, in a way that allows you to creatively respond and work towards what could be. Meaning, maybe I'm here now. I want to get there. But I need a tool to get there. And spiritually speaking, that tool is presence. Our dear Sachinanda Swami was, of course, very dear to the hearts of many people in this community. He basically coined the term for our society, being alone with Krishna. That being alone is necessary, as I before mentioned, to become aware of the contents of our consciousness, to become aware of what is happening within, and to really work with those contents through sadhana bhakti. And I would just like to mention something before I go. It is not that this mirror, this internal mirror, just needs cleansing. Maybe it just also needs some recognition. What do I mean by that? Of course, we have false values, many of us. But somewhere in there, also lies our brightest potential. We say that the Guru is the manifestation of one's brightest potential. Very beautiful way to look at the Guru. It's not just somebody who is very far from you and has nothing to do with you and then you're saved. Of course you're saved. But he shows you in front of your eyes what it is that you can become. Now, what are some concrete steps in order to turn our mediocre, we said, superficial practice into contemplative, transformative one? Just a few verses after the same chapter that I just read. Krishna says to Arjuna, among all means of suppressing lawlessness, I am punishing it. And of those who seek victory, I am morality. And now listen, Krishna says something really interesting. Of secret things, I am silence. And of the wise, I am the wisdom. And now Srila Prabhupada in his commentary to this verse says, among the confidential activities of hearing, thinking, and meditating, silence is the most important. Because by silence, one can make progress very quickly. The wise man is he who can discriminate between matter and spirit, between God's superior and inferior natures. Such knowledge is Krishna himself. So I see we're running late a little bit, but I think I won't just stop here. I'd just like to, like I promised, give a few practical tips for anybody present. So what is something that we can all do to transform our practice? Now we just heard that Krishna himself, of all secrets, is silence. I think personally that implementing some amount of silence in our lives, again, whether young or old, is very, very important. And silence does not just mean the absence of sound. It actually means deep listening. Deep listening to what is happening within and without. Within and around us. We can ask ourselves the question from time to time, what does Krishna actually want to tell me right now? When I was a kid, somebody told me something that I'll never forget. He said, Krishna in your heart, he's speaking to you all the time, but you just can't hear him. And that really stayed with me because now I'm on this mission of starting to hear. Hopefully one day I'm going to hear. And I wish the same for you. And in order to do here, to implement that silence, that deep awareness of presence, we can, of course, like I said, introduce silence, and we can avoid inattention during our activities like meditation, like japa, like kirtan, or whatever it is in your life that you want to do of higher quality, you're going to need to get rid of inattention, of course. Now, when we sit down to chant our japa, let us put away our phones. Let us be present, and perhaps that is then going to be an encounter with divinity rather than just a chore that I need to, check off of my to-do list. And another step that I also kind of intertwined in this class already is seeing Krishna within and without. In our dear scripture, our main scripture for us Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the second canto, the second part of that epoch, it starts with Krishna saying, I'm in your heart. And then he goes on to say, I'm everywhere around you. We hear of the cosmic manifestation of the Lord, him taking the cosmic body, the trees being the hair on his body, the rivers being his veins, and the mountains being his bones. Of course, that sounds very poetic, but don't forget that we are actually a tradition of poets. We are. And I'm going to prove to you why in just a second. I'm just going to go through the last steps that one can take practically. So treating others with presence is another thing that can really help transform our lives. Kapila in that same scripture that I just mentioned, in the Bible, he says that if a person worships me on the altar, but neglects to see me present in each and every one of us, in every living entity, it's like pouring hot oil, hot ghee on ashes. Now what does that mean? That means we're actually attaining nothing, right? If you pour hot ghee on ash, nothing happens. And now let me come to that final quality that I would like to mention. We are over. Okay. Great. I have 10 extra minutes. Good news. Okay, then we don't need to skip what I just wanted to skip. Srila Prabhupada, he, in his Bhagavatam commentary, ennumbers 26 wonderful qualities of a devotee. And even there he says that a devotee is silent. Interesting, we spoke about silence. So he says a devotee is silent. Meaning again, he's attentive, right? He speaks when he needs to speak, and he's silent when he needs to be silent. But he's also compassionate. He's peaceful. He's kind. He's simple and fixed on the absolute truth. But he also says that a devotee is a poet. Beautiful. It really is beautiful, because that makes spiritual life, it transforms spiritual life and spiritual experience from dryness to something just so sweet, something so joyful. Who of you here has ever tried to write poetry, if I may ask?
We have an art evening today, and youth will be
Look at that.
their poetry.
Wonderful. So, you know what? To be honest, all of you who have started to write poetry or attempted to write poetry, I beg you to continue. And all those who haven't started or who haven't tried, please do so. Because it really can change everything. Just a while ago I heard a TED Talk. You know what's a TED Talk? It's a presentation of different subject matters. And a man was speaking on poetry, and he said how poetry can save lives. How can a poem save a life? Now, he spoke of his best friend who committed suicide. But he himself, being a poet, he wrote a poem for his friend. And he said, through that poem, I'm preserving the life of my best friend. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that very sensual, very emotional? And of course, we can all do the same. We can use poetry as a tool to express our deepest emotions and our most secret emotions to Krishna, or to beloved devotees, or whatever you would like to implement it for, but especially as a practice, it can be really transformative. In our tradition, we say that every step in the spiritual world is a dance, and every word is a song. So I think we better start writing songs. There is a very famous Gaudiya scholar who says, Bhakti is the art of cultivating this attraction to God through the arts, meaning poetry, song, and dance, as well as meditation. So why don't we finish this talk today with a beautiful piece of poetry by none other than Prabodhananda Saraswati, one of the most famous poets and acharyas of our Gaudiya Sampradaya, in his Vrindavan Mahimamrita, the book where he describes the beautiful pastimes between Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. He writes, alas, May the attractive youthfulness of Krishna and Radha, their unlimited beauty, their amorous pastimes, their shedding of tears of love, the standing of their hairs on end, their becoming stunned, and Krishna's pastimes of being fully controlled by Sri Radha manifest within my heart. This is my only prayer. So, now we started this class by speaking on the matters of the heart. Now we also end with the matters of the heart, with the goal of anybody who's a serious practitioner on this path. Maybe through accessing that dimension of the heart, that interior dimension, we can move from superficial to deep, and from religious to actually spiritual, to actually something that is going to impact our lives, something that is perhaps going to prove to us that what I'm doing here, it does have an effect, it does make sense. So may all this, what I just said, help us to perhaps one day taste ourselves the sweetness of bhakti, this joy of bhakti. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions or comments or criticism, please feel free to share. Now is the time.
You maybe have a tip how to silence the mind, Like this is also one important thing I noticed.
Yeah.
To realize what is in the heart, and the mind needs to shut up a little bit.
It does.
So
It does, for sure.
maybe you have some practical advice.
Yeah. Well, I think the best tip actually to silence the mind is, first of all, breathing. In our tradition, it's called pranayama. There is something very funny regarding pranayama in our tradition. 500 years ago, Sanatan and Gopalbhatta Goswamis, who wrote the manual for worship in our tradition, the Harivyasadeva, they say before chanting, one should practice 20 minutes of pranayama. Who does that? Of course, nobody does that nowadays. They said that 500 years ago. The world 500 years ago was fairly peaceful, especially in rural India. So I think implementing just a few minutes of just conscious breathing is going to help calm the mind. And again, that can't be really separated from presence or awareness, because you can't breathe with awareness without awareness. So I think that is something that is the first step that one can take, is really to breathe consciously, and then do any practice that you actually want to do. Yeah. And again, deep listening, like I just said, silence means deep listening. And maybe what your mind is telling you is not just all, rubbish. Maybe it needs some acknowledgement. Maybe it needs some time to be processed. Maybe it is not the fact that everything just belongs in the trash can. Maybe there is something, maybe your mind is telling you something that you need to address. I don't know, I'm not in your mind, but I can only speak from experience. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And how do we understand that if there are a thought, and that's Krishna in our heart that says it, and not our false ego?
Mm-hmm. Very good question. I was waiting for somebody to ask. Because how do you actually...
Could you perhaps repeat it?
Yeah. So, Mataji asked, how do I distinguish between thoughts from myself and an impulse or a thought coming from Krishna? I think that we all experience repetitive thinking. 98% of what we think is perhaps repetitive, negative. Sometimes you get a glimpse, you get a quickening of the heart. that quickening means there is movement, there is something of a different nature than your own. Let's at least say different than your lower nature, because we all have a lower and a higher nature. And I think to just be reflective and attentive, again, that's why we want to go or move through our life with presence, because then you can be able, or you're going to be able to recognize these quickenings of the heart, these impulses from Krishna himself, when you're present. Otherwise, it's just going to, fly by and you won't even notice that he's actually trying to tell you. Of course, intuition is there, a feeling in the gut, a feeling in the heart. And these things are, of course, also as well God-given. It's something that needs to be cultivated, something that needs to be tended to. So I think, again, deep awareness and deep listening, as well as consulting with those who have more experience. If you feel that, maybe this was actually Paramatma, the super soul, trying to tell me something, and you're not really sure, maybe you can confide in a friend. Maybe you can share that with a friend or a senior who's going to be able to help you out and give you some guidance. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Just a small answer, just experience from myself. Since I listen to God, I feel safety inside me. But if I feel like cultish inside me, it's something coming from myself. But if it's coming from God, I feel safety, I feel safe.
Wonderful.
I feel calm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is actually
Can you
just.
repeat the question?
This was a comment. This was an addition to the answer I just gave. So, it was said that actually, when I receive something from God, then I feel peaceful, I feel calm, I feel at rest, at ease. No? And if there is chaos inside, of course, I feel that's coming from myself. But that what comes from God is actually, it gives me love, it gives me peace. And I think that is just what I was missing in my answer now, because perhaps that is really an indication when you connect to the divine, to Radha and Krishna, to whatever form of God you're actually worshipping. And there are many, even just in our tradition, of course, there are many forms, but maybe peace comes, peace arrives. And it enables us to do more of it. I think once we start tasting that state of prayer, that state of peace or love, probably you just become a little addicted to it, isn't it? I mean, if it's really something higher, then it's probably addictive, actually, in a most beautiful way. And then you're going to hopefully experience more and more of it. Of course, there are ups and downs, and it feels like as if we're in a really heavy ocean sometimes being in this world. But yeah, I think the world goes through that very difficult period right now. But that's why I wanted to share this with you, because that presence, that kindness, that compassion can actually transform each and every one of us, starting on a small scale. Probably I can't just stand up and change the world right now, but I can change myself, and through that have anything. I think we have time for just one more, if there is one more question, or comment, or whatever.
If there are no comments, I would like to ask you to finish with what you started, with this quote. The quote from...
Quote? Cardio?
Yeah.
Okay. To finish from what I started?
Yeah.
Well, interesting. Maybe I should repeat the quote one more time. So in the beginning I started this presentation with a quote by Carl Gustav Jung saying, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside believes." Now, that pretty much was the essence of this talk, wouldn't you say? I was speaking a lot on matters of the heart, on accessing that realm within, and looking inside, not going on retreat perhaps. Even a young person, even an old person, it doesn't really matter if you take a few minutes to just be on your own, be alone with Krishna, like we said. then I truly believe you are going to awaken. First, you're going to awaken to things that are, as we said, anarthas, something maybe unnecessary, something that needs to be tended to. But more and more, you're hopefully going to awaken to something higher than ourselves and our small selves. Somebody says that there's a small mind and a big mind. And the big mind is spiritual. The big mind is revolutionary, transformative, whatever you want to call it. It has a very deep impact. And coming back to your question, once you have that experience, you're definitely going to know. You'll have to know, because that experience is that powerful that nothing can take it away from you, nothing can change your mind. You're going to know. I think Panjalamani would agree with me. No? All of us who are on this path have had certain quickenings, as I call them. Sometimes looking at Krishna, sometimes hearing the Mahamantra, whatever that might be. Otherwise, I think none of us would be here. Yeah. Okay, I was requested to explain just a little bit on the month that just started today. It is Purushottamas, and that is a very special month because Krishna says himself that I am Purushottamas. I manifest in this world also as Purushottamas. Now, we're going to do something fun, something that's hopefully going to impress samskara, an impression on your mind and heart. That is going to help us go within. And that is to offer a lamp to Krishna. We're going to offer small ghee lamps to Krishna. And we usually do that every Sunday. But since it is Purushottamas, since we're from today on, for 1 month, in this special month, it is very effective to do spiritual practice. I can really encourage all of you to take it up, to, just, maybe it's not chanting more, like I said, maybe it's just chanting better with more presence. Offering a lamp with presence, chanting, singing, dancing, writing poetry with presence. So, it is a very powerful month. It comes once every 3 years in our Vaishnava calendar. So take the opportunity and try to connect and see what happens. We're going to have a stand-up singing kirtan while we're offering the lamps. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.